GOP Senator Tom Cotton, member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Hey, Senator, you had one person over the weekend defend the president's action because he decided not to sit on his hands and watch, well, I don't know, 12, 15 cities burn.
Well, good morning, guys.
Morning.
The president has to take action to defend federal properties and installations. He ought not have to. Local mayors and governors should defend federal property the same way they defend private property, their own public property. But what you see in Portland is a systematic, deliberate, and ongoing attack on the federal courthouse and the federal building. Of course, the federal government has to defend its own property if a local mayor will not. If he doesn't want federal officers in Portland, he ought to do his job.
Yeah, in court papers that were filed over the weekend, apparently federal government says at least $50,000 worth of damage has been done to the Hatfield courthouse there in Portland, not only in vandalism and graffiti, but also the constant fires that they seem to start every night. Senator, we want you to try to decipher for us, if you would, what Congressman Jerry Nadler said on a Twitter video with a journalist by the name of Austin Fletcher, because he was asked about violence and Antifa, and he called it a myth. Watch this.
There's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa that's happening in Portland right now? There's riots.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there. Look online. It gets crazy, Mr. Nadler.
So, Senator, I can't tell if he is referring to the part of the sentence where the reporter says there's violence across the whole country. Is he calling that a myth, or is he calling the fact that Antifa is in Portland a myth?
Well, Jerry Nadler denying Antifa is in Portland is kind of like Baghdad Bob denying there were American tanks in Baghdad back in the day. I mean, you can just look at the videos that have been posted in recent weeks. I mean, people are carrying the flag of Antifa and wearing T-shirts and spray painting it on buildings. Obviously, that's not the only people in the streets in Portland, but there's no question that there are professional instigators and agitators on the streets in Portland who are trying to stir up violence. It's a sad situation that people who want to protest peacefully or demonstrate for any cause can't do so without these instigators and agitators trying to infiltrate their protests and use them for their own purposes.
So the Republicans are set to unveil the coronavirus bill, which will include $1,200 in stimulus checks, liability protections for businesses and schools. What else can we expect?
Well, Ainsley, I don't want to speculate on the legislation since it's not revealed yet, but I want to stress that in March, we did not know much about this virus. We did not know about the kind of impact it was going to have. That's why we unanimously passed the CARES Act. I would not have viewed that at the time as a recovery bill or even a stimulus bill. It was a survival bill. But now that we know so much more about this virus and its impact, now that we know about the economic impacts it had, we really need to have a bill that is much more finely targeted and calibrated towards the needs that we see today, like helping our schools and colleges and universities and businesses get open by protecting them from ambulance-chasing trial lawyers, or helping our doctors and hospitals and clinics get the supplies that they need to ensure that we are testing in sufficient speed and volume, and to focus aid on where it's truly needed on some of those industries and businesses that are most heavily impacted, that haven't been able to get to work, people who are still out of work through no fault of their own, through the fault only of the Chinese Communist Party. So that's what I expect you'll see in the bill today, and that's where our focus will be in the days ahead.
Senator Tom Cotton, you also, in the eye of the storm, you like to take on red-hot issues, including the 1619 Project. And here's part of your interview with the Arkansas Democratic Gazette. Quote, "We have to study the history of slavery and its role and impact on the development of our country, because otherwise we can't understand our country. As the founding fathers said, it was the necessary evil upon which the Union was built, but the Union was built in a way, as Lincoln said, to put slavery on the course to ultimate extinction." Some say that was insensitive.
Well, that is fake news, Brian. That's not what I said. What I said is that many founders believed that only with the Union and the Constitution could we put slavery on the path to its ultimate extinction. That's exactly what Lincoln said. Of course, slavery is an evil institution in all its forms at all times. in America's past or around the world today. But the fundamental moral principle of America is right there in the Declaration. All men are created equal. And the history of America is the long and sometimes difficult struggle to live up to that principle. That's a history we ought to be proud of, not the historical revisionism of the 1619 Project, which wants to indoctrinate America's kids and teach them to hate America, to believe that America was founded not on human freedom, but on racism, to think that slavery was not an aberration, but the true heart of America. That's why leading historians like James McPherson or Gordon Wood have debunked the 1619 Project. That's why I've introduced legislation to ensure that federal tax dollars don't go to teaching it. The New York Times should not be teaching American history to our kids.
Senator, before you go, today marks 99 days before the election day. What is the state of the race right now?
Well, I think it's a close race in the presidential campaign and the Senate campaigns as well. And the American people are going to be asking who is going to be best equipped to help get the economy back on its feet? Who is going to protect our communities from the violence we see in the streets? Who's going to protect this nation from the threat of the Chinese Communist Party and other threats abroad? And as we head down the home stretch of this campaign, I think that they'll conclude that it's the president and the Republican Party.
Senator, thank you for being with us.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Good luck today. Okay.